The Year Without a Summer, a tale of 1816 and a terrifying time. In the quaint villages of New England, where the rhythms of the seasons governed life, the year 1816 began with a whisper of strangeness. It was a year destined to be remembered not by its warmth, but by an unending chill that would etch itself into the annals of history as the Year Without a Summer. As the new year dawned, the inhabitants of these lands expected the familiar embrace of spring, but instead, they were met with an unsettling turn. The warmth of April was abruptly stolen away. In Salem, Massachusetts, what began as a promising 74-degree day on April 24th plummeted to a bone-chilling 21 degrees in less than 24 hours. It was as if spring had been cruelly snatched away, leaving a bitter reminder of what could have been. Thomas Robbins, a thoughtful bibliophile from East Windsor, Connecticut, penned his concern in a diary entry that seemed to capture the growing unease of the times. The vegetation does not seem to advance at all. His words echoed the frustration of many who watched their gardens wither and their hopes crumble. By mid-May, the situation worsened dramatically. Strong winds from the north carried frost and destruction, killing fruit buds and turning ponds and streams into icy mirrors. In central Maine, corn plants that had just begun to peak from the earth were abruptly halted by the relentless cold. The situation took an even more bizarre turn on June 6th, when 6 inches of snow blanketed New England as if winter had returned with a vengeful twist. Chauncey Jerome, a clockmaker in Plymouth, Connecticut, described his bewilderment as he trudged to work bundled in woolen layers, an overcoat and mittens, a far cry from the attire one would expect in June. In Boston, flurries dusted the streets the following day, setting a record for the latest snowfall ever recorded. The snow that fell so profusely in Cabot, Vermont, was a testament to the sheer oddity of the season. Birds, unprepared for the frigid onslaught, fell dead from the sky, and desperate farmers, who had already sheared their sheep, found themselves struggling to protect their livestock from the unforgiving cold. The relentless cold didn't spare July, when temperatures in some places dipped to a frigid 40 degrees, well below the seasonal norm. On July 4th, the irony was not lost on Chauncey Jerome as he noted the patriotic celebrations overshadowed by men playing quoits in their overcoats. The contrast was stark, a harsh reminder that the season's cold was relentless and unyielding. The sporadic warmth of summer offered false hope. On June 22nd, Salem experienced an unseasonable 101 degrees, only for a cold snap to follow shortly after. The ups and downs of the weather were disheartening, leaving crops vulnerable and farmers desperate. A severe drought compounded the misery, with parched fields and the specter of famine looming large. The despair was palpable as ministers and governors alike called for prayers and proclamations, seeking divine intervention to alleviate the suffering. August brought a fleeting respite, with sunny days hinting at a possible end to the harsh season. Farmers, ever hopeful, planted new crops, only to face another cruel twist. On August 13th and 14th, a sudden frost devastated the corn crop in northern New Hampshire. As August 20th arrived, a violent storm struck Amherst, New Hampshire, followed by a dramatic temperature drop of 30 degrees. Snow returned to Vermont, and farmers in Maine wrapped rags around their plants in a desperate bid to protect them. Despite the overwhelming challenges, there were glimmers of resilience. In Ashland, New Hampshire, Reuben Whitten managed to cultivate wheat on his south-facing farm. His generosity in sharing his harvest with neighbors became a beacon of hope in a year overshadowed by adversity. When he passed away in 1847, his neighbors honored him with a gravestone and a monument, a testament to the community's gratitude and his enduring spirit. The year 1816, with its relentless cold and heart-wrenching struggles, left an indelible mark on the lives of those who lived through it. It was a time when the very essence of summer was lost, and the resilience of the human spirit was tested in ways few could have imagined. Even today, as we look back on the Year Without a Summer, we remember not just the cold, but the warmth of human compassion that shone through the frost. A pioneer of this town, cold season of 1816 raised 40 bushels of wheat on this land, which kept his family and neighbors from starvation. In the summer of 1816, New England found itself trapped in an unending winter's grip. This year, later known as the Year Without a Summer, was not just a historical anomaly, but a trial that would test the endurance and ingenuity of its people. By late August, the last vestiges of hope for salvaging the corn crop were obliterated by a fierce frost. Maine and New Hampshire farmers, their faces etched with frustration and cold, cut down entire fields of corn not for harvest, but for fodder to feed their struggling livestock. In Kittery, Maine, Reverend William Fogg's terse summary captured the mood. Crops cut short and a heavy load of taxes. The reality was grim. Fields once teeming with promise were now stark reminders of the season's cruelty. With the arrival of September, the familiar warmth of late summer returned briefly, offering a fleeting sense of normalcy. Yet, the reprieve was short-lived. On September 26th, in Hanover, New Hampshire, the temperature plunged to a bone-chilling 26 degrees at sunrise. Snow fell once more, sealing the fate of crops still lingering in the fields and turning apples on the branches into icy relics of a vanished summer. The hardships extended beyond the frost and snow. The drought had ignited wildfires that ravaged the forests of New England. Smoke from the fires in western New York was so thick that sailors on Lake Champlain were left disoriented and blinded by the haze. The fires added to the already dire conditions, turning forests into smoldering wastelands and further straining resources. For the impoverished, the situation was particularly dire. The New Hampshire Patriot's October 22nd report painted a bleak picture. Indian corn, on which a large proportion of the poor depend, is cut off. In Vermont, the situation was equally desperate. Families scoured the countryside for whatever they could find, foraging for nettles, wild turnips, and even hedgehogs. The loss of 3/4 of the corn crop led to skyrocketing prices for wheat, grains, meat, and other essentials. In Maine, oats tripled in price, and potatoes doubled. Hay, once affordable, soared to $180 a ton in some parts of New Hampshire, 6 times its usual cost. Amidst the suffering, the Year Without a Summer had an unexpected cultural ripple. In Switzerland, where a group of poets was marooned by the weather, the gloom of the season led Mary Shelley to write what would become the iconic novel, Frankenstein. The peculiar weather, it seemed, inspired more than just despair. Yet, not all was bleak. In Vermont, the harsh season inadvertently boosted the production of maple syrup. The syrup, a rare commodity in such times, became a trade staple, swapped for fish, leading Vermonters to dub 1816 the mackerel year. In Washington, the mood was less sympathetic. While the nation struggled, Congress members voted to double their salaries, a decision that did not sit well with the public. The backlash was swift and severe. Nearly 70% of incumbent U.S. representatives were ousted, including the prominent Daniel Webster. The aftermath of the Year Without a Summer saw a shift towards more systematic weather observations. Josiah Meigs, the Commissioner General of the Land Offices, recognized the need for better tracking of such anomalies. Beginning in 1817, he mandated that the 20 land offices record temperature, wind, and precipitation 3 times a day. This move marked the beginning of a more organized approach to understanding and predicting weather patterns. The Year Without a Summer remains a poignant chapter in history, a testament to the resilience of those who endured its trials. It was a time when hope and hardship were woven together, and communities rallied in the face of an indifferent climate. As we look back, we remember not just the relentless cold, but also the warmth of the human spirit that shone through the frost. At last, a kind of despair seized upon the people. In the pressure of adversity, many persons lost their judgment, and thousands feared or felt that New England was destined, henceforth, to become part of the frigid zone. In the aftermath of 1816, often remembered as the year without a summer. The lingering cold had profound effects on the lives of those who had endured its harsh grip. Samuel Goodrich, an astute observer of the time, journeyed to New Hampshire to witness the aftermath firsthand. His accounts painted a vivid picture of the challenges faced by the residents as they grappled with the season's lingering chill. The following year continued the trend of relentless cold, pushing many farmers from the northeast to seek refuge in the more temperate Midwest. The migration was a testament to the desperation felt by those who had seen their crops wither and their livelihoods crumble. Reverend Samuel Robbins from East Windsor, Connecticut, noted with a hint of melancholy, "We have had a great deal of moving this spring. Our number rather diminished." His observation reflected a wider exodus driven by the harsh realities of the recent climate. At the time, explanations for the bizarre weather ran the gamut from the plausible to the fantastical. Some attributed the strange phenomena to sunspots or the impact of deforestation. Others pointed to theories involving great fields of ice drifting in the Atlantic, or even Benjamin Franklin's lightning rod experiments. And of course, there was no shortage of speculation that the weather was the result of divine wrath. Yet, amid the array of theories, one explanation has stood out in historical research. Many scholars now believe that the cataclysmic eruption of Mount Tambora in Indonesia played a central role in the year's unusual weather. The eruption, which occurred in April 1815, was one of the most powerful in recorded history, instantly killing an estimated 15,000 people. The aftermath was equally devastating, with another 65,000 succumbing to disease and starvation. The explosion ejected vast amounts of volcanic ash and debris into the stratosphere, creating a veil that blocked sunlight and led to a significant drop in temperatures around the globe. Lee Foster, a meteorologist with NOAA, notes that the year 1816 was part of a larger climatic anomaly known as the Little Ice Age, which stretched from roughly 1400 to 1860. This era was marked by notably harsh winters, truncated growing seasons, and periods of dry weather. The chilly conditions of 1816 were thus not an isolated event, but part of a broader pattern of climatic instability. The year without a summer stands as a stark reminder of nature's power and unpredictability. It was a time when explanations were as varied as the experiences of those who lived through it. From volcanic eruptions to cosmic phenomena, the quest to understand the year's frigid grip highlights both the limits of early scientific knowledge and the resilience of those who faced the chilling consequences. As history has shown, understanding and adapting to such extreme weather events is an ongoing challenge. The lessons learned from 1816 continue to resonate, underscoring the importance of climate awareness and the enduring quest to decode the mysteries of our planet's ever-changing climate. Thank you for listening. If you would like to hear from me again, please consider subscribing to our channel, Tales End Time. Until you hear from me again, goodbye.